Welcome to the Daybreak with Jeff Slakey podcast. I'm so happy you found us. Please subscribe, rate, review, and share this with your circle of influence. It's a collection of the interviews, news, and conversation during Daybreak with Jeff Slakey on I-Fiber One News Radio, KMAS, weekdays from 6 to 9. Good Tuesday morning to you. The sun is shining, I think, a little cooler than it was yesterday as we bring in Spencer Hughes. Good morning, Spence.
Hey, good morning. Yes, much cooler, about maybe 10, 15 degrees cooler. That'll be nice.
Well, I don't ever necessarily trust the thermometer in my car, but it did say 100 yesterday as we were driving around late in the afternoon.
Wow.
It was toasty.
It was, and the family went out to a quiet little patch of the coast yesterday, and they said it was like 20 degrees cooler, I think, so they were cool there, and it was actually foggy. They couldn't see much of the ocean. It was so foggy, so what a change, huh?
Yeah, for sure. We had Kaiser had his first sleepover since the pandemic started. He stayed out at my in-laws who live on a lake, and we said, listen, Kaiser, it's going to be hot at our house. And the lake, it's always cooler by the water.
Sure.
And then tomorrow, the next day when you wake up, you go swimming or whatever you want to do. And so he actually did it. It's our third time trying a sleepover since the pandemic started.
Wow.
This is the first time it's actually stuck. And I think it's because it's been so long.
That's awesome. He'll be back in September sometime, right? He's going to have so much fun.
I hope so. Today on the show, local news and conversation. We'll get a COVID update as well. We'll look at the Shelton Police blotter. PUD 3 gets another clean audit.
And we'll start with a COVID update. Since the last release, Mason County Public Health was notified of 20 additional Mason County residents that tested positive for COVID-19. So this brings the total to 130 positive cases in Mason County alone. Mason County Public Health continuing contact interviews. The patients are currently isolating at home. No current outbreaks to report. Many positive cases are within the same family or multifamily households. Mason County testing at more than twice the rate than during April and that peak. Case numbers represent specific individuals, not the number of tests that an individual may have had. In some cases, Mason County staff will receive case information prior to Washington State Department of Health, and this can result in discrepancies when reviewing data from multiple agencies.
On Saturday, Shelton police were dispatched to a large disturbance at the McDonald's drive-thru on Olympic Highway North. Upon arrival, officers located a male victim with a large laceration on his arm and a superficial stab wound to chest and head. The victim's vehicle's windows were smashed and had large dents to the frame, presumably from a bat or a pipe. The suspects fled the scene before law enforcement arrived. The victim transported to Mason General with non-life-threatening injuries. Unknown what led to the assault, but it would appear that the victim and suspects knew each other and that this was not random. Anyone who witnessed this or has further information, please contact Shelton Police, 360-432-5145. And you can reference the case number 20S06791, or you probably can just say, I have information on that incident at the McDonald's.
Boy, scary situation there. Mason PUD 3 receiving its 41st consecutive clean report from the Washington State Auditor's Office on the PUD's financial management operations and compliance with state laws and regulations. Good for them. PUD 3 officials met with representatives of the Auditor's Office to review the results of the annual examination. Clean audits are a testament to the sound policies and high standards that our employees follow, said Annette Creekpalm, PUD 3 manager. An audit team from the Washington State Auditor's Office worked with the PUD's internal auditor and finance team for the last 2 months to complete financial and accountability audits. Additional staff and other PUD departments also helped with the audit. PUD 3 has received 15 consecutive certificates of excellence in financial reporting. That's from the International Government Finance Officers Association of the U.S. and Canada. The PUD's annual reports have also won honors from the Northwest Public Power Association and American Public Power Association.
When I got that email in from Lynn Eaton there from the PUD, I looked at it and I said, 41 years. That is amazing. So I'm going to book an interview with her just to talk a little bit about that because, you know, obviously there's turnover in companies. It's
sure.
Not it hasn't been the same person doing that for 41 years. So how they're able to build that culture is something I am interested in learning a little bit more about.
Oh, yeah. Very difficult.
Planning for the... Isn't that something?
Oh, yeah.
Planning for the 2020-2021 school year is currently being addressed through subcommittees, including staff, students, families, and community members. This is for the Shelton School District. The subcommittees have turned in their recommendations. These recommendations will be presented to the school board tonight for formal approval. Now, once approved, the recommendations will be released tomorrow, and the district plan for the school year will also be presented at an open community forum on the 30th in 2 days at 6 p.m. There are links to this, so you can watch it and go to sheltonschools.org.
Scientists say an orca who raised worldwide concern. This made global news. Remember that video footage of the mother orca carrying her dead calf for 17 days, more than 1,000 miles? That was almost 2 years ago. The good news is she is pregnant. The Seattle Times reports Southall Environmental Associates scientist John Durbin and Marine Mammal Research Director for the nonprofit SR3, Holly Fernbach, recently finished recording drone images of the endangered southern residents and discovered pregnancies amid the J, K, and L pods. Pregnancies are not unusual, but her pregnancy carries special meaning for a region that grieved the death of her calf along with her. The southern residents are struggling to survive, and most pregnancies are not successful. So that's pretty exciting news.
Wow, that is exciting. In sports news, Alex Bregman hit his 100th career homer, 3-run shot. Jose Altuve added a solo. Houston Astros win over the Mariners yesterday, 8-5. Stros trailed by 2 in the third, then Bregman's home run happened. We'll have more Mariners baseball on the air today. They're going to be playing at Los Angeles. The pregame is going to be 5:30. The first pitch is 6:40 this afternoon. The home opener for the Mariners will be Friday against the Oakland Athletics. You know, real tenuous situation here when it comes to Major League Baseball. I read and saw yesterday that the Florida team, who was in Philadelphia to play the Phillies, I think is ending up having to stay in Philadelphia because near half of their 33 traveling team tested positive for COVID. Wow. So the Florida games, 2 games were canceled. And then since they were playing Philly, the Philly-Yankees game yesterday was canceled as well out of an abundance of caution. They have got the capacity to do tests rapid, like within a 24-hour return time or something like that. So there is a lot of testing going on with Major League Baseball. They are doing everything they can to keep this a safe start to the season. But, I mentioned this before. I just think it's such a hard time, to be thinking about sports right now. I know we need the release and the break, but I think I said this. I heard a pitcher quote something that says sports, are a reward for a functioning society. And I kind of like the way that sounds because, we are in tough times right now. And if Major League Baseball, they're like a microcosm to the whole country. And if they're having these struggles, I don't know, man.
Yeah, it's tough. You have to ask yourself, is it worth putting these productions together if they can't do it 100%? It's everything from the empty stands to the players getting sick to sound effects of applause and stuff. It reminds me of the old sitcoms, where it wouldn't be a live audience necessarily, but the canned laughter and stuff.
The canned laughter. I heard yesterday, and I found this amazing. For one baseball player on a daily basis, one baseball player, I don't know how they figured this out, but they have 63 person-to-person contacts on a daily basis. So that number obviously has to go way down. But, that's just a ton of people that each player interacts with.
Yeah, then you multiply it by the players and then the players that the relief players that come in and the bench.
Yeah.
Boy, interesting.
So more Mariners as we roll through. We're going to have, I am hopeful that all 60 games will be played here on the radio. But again, tonight, 5:30 will be the pregame against the Los Angeles Angels. More Daybreak Show is coming up.
From the iFiber One News Radio studios, you're listening to Daybreak.
Well, once again, good morning to you. The Daybreak Show rolls on in studio, talking with Mason County Sheriff Casey Salisbury for the Sheriff Sit Down, presented by our great friends at Our Community Credit Union. Hey, Casey, how are you?
Good morning.
Let's talk a little bit about Mason County, the Sheriff's Office, even the Shelton Police Department a little bit, versus kind of what we're seeing in the big cities. I know when I talk with Chief Moody, and I know you've been on the panels of this too, when we talk about community policing, that kind of means out walking the streets, a 21st century model here, and it looks a lot different than what we see on the nightly news, kind of in cities, in the bigger cities. Let's talk, one, about what community policing is and how it's different, and then what the 21st century model of policing is.
You know, Jeff, I think one of the biggest things is that I was calling Chief Moody the new chief, but he's not new anymore.
No,
he's been here in the community a while. But with Chief Moody and I, when we're out and about working, or when we're about going to the grocery store, you know us. Yeah. When you see us in the store, you know who we are. I think that's a lot different than when you work in a city, a huge city in Los Angeles, or one of those cities, or Seattle. I don't know how many times that people actually run into Chief Best. In our community, we see each other. We're part of the community, on, off duty. And we know the people in our community really, really well for the most part. I've been here for a long time. Many of the people here were my teachers and relatives and things in the community. I think that changes the perspective of policing a little bit. And as you know, just like here, I don't know how many people just call up a radio station in Seattle and talk to the person hosting the radio show that day, or how many times the chief is on, other than King 5 or 7 or something like that. But how many times are they that close to the community? And I think that's a lot different in rural communities. You see the community be a lot closer. And many of us, at least in the sheriff's office, and there's a number in the city, we all grew up here. I mean, we didn't just show up here from another place and come to work. We have a few people from the outside, but we have a lot of people that grew up to the community. It means a lot to them. I think that makes a big difference.
So does that, that doesn't change the rules of policing at all? How is it, how does it just feel and appear so different?
I think it's because I think some of it's relative closest. And I also think that some of it, when you look at these things, to me, it's a lot harder, it's a lot easier to get on some email and be critical of something without knowing somebody. When you know somebody and you're face-to-face with them, I think people are a little more humane and decent about things. And because, again, the relative closeness in the community, we can do those kind of things. And I think as that distance gets further away and you don't really know your policing organization or haven't participated with them in things, your opinion might be different. Myself and the chief of Mercer Island, Chief Holmes, were selected many years ago to co-chair what was called the Citizens Trust or Public Trust Committee, which developed through the 21st century policing model that was put out years ago, to see if we're meeting all those areas in that. And we, without even really thinking about it, met most all the areas in that 21st century policing model. And we continue to do so. As you know, on Fridays, it's hard right now. On Fridays, I've always taken it Friday, usually in the morning, take off and go out and try to get to different areas of the county that are outside of Shelton, way out, and little stores, and just walk through and say hi to people. And I think that's a big thing. And for a sheriff in the size of King County, for Chief Joe Hecknick, she's got millions of people, and it's hard probably for her to get out, way out to the edges of King County and meet with people. So it's just a little bit different environment when you're in a more rural community, I think.
There's been a lot of talk and images in Olympia and in Seattle and in Portland, coming up on 60 days of protests now with federal groups or whoever's out there. When you look at kind of what you have in the sheriff's office, I know over the years you've been acquire past military equipment like the MRAP and things like that, and you've got it at a heck of a deal for the county. I think you paid $1 for it or something like that. Is that something that you think you're going to continue to look for moving forward, or was that a time in the early teens where that was the way that you were looking at a police force? I mean, there's a lot of questions right now about these types of vehicles and military equipment, perhaps for the police office and the sheriff's office. Are you going to continue to do those types of things if you have the opportunity to find them?
Well, I don't actually, and I think that the reason that you get that equipment is a little bit different than what some people view it as. Sure, it's easy to say that it's some kind of a militaristic thing, but take, for instance, around here, we have the National Forest. There are places in that National Forest in the wintertime and things that can be very, very difficult to get to. We had a Humvee, which made it possible for us, and we used it several times to go up on missions to bring people out that were injured or stranded, to pull them out or stuff like that. When we talk about the MRAP, and people will say, well, that's they don't shoot anything is the first thing. People call them tanks. They don't shoot anything out of them. The number of times that we've used those vehicles, I think of one in particular. I won't give you the exact incident or place, but we had one where we had a person held up in a house and had a little girl in there, and we were able to move into that residence, and one of our deputies was able to grab her and save her life by getting her into that Humvee and the MRAP, and safely out of there. Purely a defensive piece of equipment, if you will, not an offensive piece of equipment, and the number of lives that those have saved, they've been worth every penny of it. I don't know that stuff will be available. I think part of it was because we had a lot going on in the Middle East at the time, which made some equipment available that we wouldn't normally have. But it's been extremely helpful and to extricate people safely out of an area or move people safely into an area that we need to get people into. They've been excellent pieces of equipment for us, and they've been used in a very defensive fashion, if you will.
Yeah. We've been hearing a lot out on social media of folks wanting to defund the police, then folks also want to defend the police. What's kind of the overall statements and messages that you're getting into to the sheriff's office on how you guys are doing and stuff like that?
Well, I'll tell you, we talked about the differences in communities. Our community has been extremely supportive. We get a couple of weeks ago cards, letters, flowers, all kinds of things sent to our office that people bring in, mostly letters and things from out of the area, sending us saying, hey, we love the community the way it is. We love Mason County. Please help us keep us that way. We get different businesses saying, we love the deputies coming in our business. We like having them here. Thank you for sending them up here. Please keep our deputies in place. Please let us stay, keep our community the way it is. And we very much support law enforcement. We get loads of letters. I had one from, I won't say the name, I wouldn't remember the name anyway. We've got one down there that came in from whoever you are in Madras, Oregon, that came through here and contacted one of our deputies for something and wrote us a letter back saying, you know, how appreciative they were of the work that the deputies did to help them while they were here. I've got them from other states, several other states, where people have personally handwritten cards saying, I was here, this happened to us, and the deputies helped us with this. I mean, we've got loads of them that come in up there, and it's really nice during this tough time. The other thing that I've noticed that Ryan and I still go out with our masks on and things and wander through places in the community when we can. Chief Sperling and I were out one day, and this guy walked up from King County and said, you know, we're moving here. We've got a summer house. We're out of there. We're moving here. Well, there's a lot of people saying that they want to move down here and away from all that stuff. And I hope that doesn't bring any problems with it. But most of those people are saying, we love it here. That we want out of the traffic. We want out of that area in Seattle and things that are going on. And so there's a lot of people that are looking to these places that have a little more wide open spaces. And they seem to be very supportive of what we're doing, which is a great thing for us. And I would say that, you know, there's not very many of us between Chief Moody's staff and the tribes with both of them being involved with us in the state patrol. But there's not very many of us all together. And that's another thing that I think is helpful. If we need something in the county and we really have something going on, the city usually is right there. If the city has something, we can get in and help them. The troopers, we're kind of one big moving unit with different uniforms on. The tribal leadership, Chief Hagman, Chief Smith. We've known each other. All of us grew up together. I've known Chief Smith since we were elementary school, and so it's real easy to get along with people when you've known them for 50 years. Yeah. And it's just a little bit different in a community like this, and I'm very happy with it. And when I talk to the sheriffs in the rural communities and the sheriff's offices, they get tremendous support as well. So
that kind of brings us right back to the start of the conversation with community policing. Mason County Sheriff Casey Salisbury here for the Sheriff Sit Down, presented by our great friends at Our Community Credit Union. Thanks, Casey.
Thank you.
You're listening to Daybreak on I-Fiber One News Radio.
Again, good morning to you. It's Tuesday here at I-Fiber One News Radio. Again, Mariners on tonight at 5:30 against the Los Angeles Angels. Morning, Spencer. How are you?
I'm doing great. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing real well. Saw this report, and you hope for the best, and then you're not sure how it's going to turn out. But this is a good one here. News outlet reports a pet dog that jumped out of a car on a South Carolina highway has been found 2 weeks later, nearly 600 miles away. A guy named Tim Whitfield, whose 90-year-old mother owns the dog named Belle, says the pet escaped from a moving car near Charleston, South Carolina, back on the 15th. Whitfield put out a call for help on Facebook and said that he bought his mom the puppy after her dog passed away. TV station down there reported Sunday that Whitfield learned over the weekend that a car of Florida residents grabbed Belle out of traffic after spotting the animal while traveling to Miami. From South Carolina to Miami.
That's unbelievable. I mean, how did it walk 600 miles? And you wonder, if somebody picked her up and then dropped her off, or, you know what I mean? How much of this traveling did this dog do? And did it have a Fitbit? Or an Apple Watch. I mean, it needs to keep track of this stuff.
It needs to. It needs that GPS. There was that problem with Garmin over the weekend, but I think that's all been fixed. But yeah, I mean, that is simply amazing. I had thought I heard too on a addition to this story. It was something about where the dog had lived before. Have you ever heard those stories?
Oh, yeah.
They move across country or something, and somehow the dog just starts wandering. But my question is, like you said, from South Carolina to Miami, nobody saw the dog, nobody picked the dog up until the destination?
Yeah, there's something kind of missing in this, and they need to interview the dog is what they need to do. Has anyone done this yet? So,
how was the trip? It was rough.
And this is a gratuitous plug for the whistle product I always tell you about that we have around our son's dog's neck. That thing's worth its weight in gold, man. I'm telling you. Anybody who has a dog that gets out, or you think it's going to get out, or nobody hopes that'll happen to their animal, but this thing tracks it down within a few feet where this animal is anywhere on Earth. So it's a good idea. Or, it doesn't cost very much when you think about, the health and well-being of your animal.
My in-laws have that for their dog, and it's definitely helped out a few times already. A puppy, so it's going to go wherever it wants to go.
Oh, absolutely. Who was really loud this morning were the owls in the forest here.
Oh, yeah?
The barred owls. And here's an interesting story. We hear about kids and people being trapped in wells and having to be rescued. Yeah. How about an owl trapped in an old castle's well? Firefighters in northern Germany rescued a young owl that was trapped in a 130-foot well shaft following an hours-long operation in which oxygen was pumped into the depths before a rescuer could get down there to save the bird. Authorities say a member of the public called firefighters in the town of Bad Sedgeberg. I don't know what's so bad about it. Bad Sedgeberg, after hearing sounds from the distressed bird inside the well, which belonged to the 12th century Sykesburg castle that once stood on the spot. The entire rescue operation lasted 3.5 hours, involving 20 people, and the eagle owl is to be returned to the wild today. So that's kind of a cool story that they, a lot of people wouldn't have bothered doing that, but they got this owl out, and now it's going to be back in the wild today.
This is another story here. There was a show on DIY or one of those channels where the host had a lump or something like that, and an eagle-eye viewer writes into the show and says, "Hey man, you should probably go get that checked out." Well, a television news reporter in Florida is crediting another eagle-eyed viewer for noticing a lump on her neck and emailing her that she should get it checked out. Victoria Price, a reporter for WFLA in Tampa, following the advice, now diagnosed with cancer. Price tweeted that she was undergoing surgery yesterday to remove the tumor, her thyroid, and a couple of lymph nodes. She says she hopes it's her first and last surgery. Viewer emailed Price last month saying the lump reminded her of one she had. And
Wow.
Price says she is forever grateful to the viewer for getting in touch. Isn't that something?
It really is incredible. And, and this might not have been caught like back in the older days of television either, with a lot of the HD broadcasts and everything.
Oh, yeah,
You could pick
I know what
hair
you're
follicles on someone's face. You can see the beads of sweat on someone's forehead. It's good that they paid attention. A lot of people criticize all the wrong things, and this wasn't critical. It was potentially life-saving.
Well, we've heard stories where TV reporters, they'll show up, news anchors, they'll show up with a new haircut or a new pair of glasses, and it's like the end of the world. People, freak out. But it's nice to know that folks are paying attention and looking at those things and noticing if it seems off. So, wow, that's an awesome story. Tuesday continues here on iFiber One News Radio at the Daybreak Show. Again, Mariners tonight, 5:30 against the Angels, and more Daybreak is coming up.
From the iFiber One News Radio studios, you're listening to Daybreak.
Hey there, it's Spencer Hughes with Jeff Slakey on a Tuesday Daybreak. Good morning to you. We often celebrate the days like a special awareness day. Well, today is one that many of you will appreciate, and that is Milk Chocolate Day. That's right. July 28th is Milk Chocolate Day. Now, dark chocolate seems to get all the attention, right? All the studies seem to involve dark chocolate, sort of like with wines. We kind of have come to the conclusion that red wine has health benefits that maybe white wine doesn't. Is it the same with chocolate? Well, we'll get to that in just a few, but happy Milk Chocolate Day, just to start things off here on the subject in the segment. Daniel Peter is known as the inventor of milk chocolate. He was born much later in the time frame of humanity than you might think. He was born in the village of Moudon, hope I'm pronouncing all this correctly, Moudon, located in the canton of Vaud. I don't even know what I just said. Wasn't that the place where they wanted to take the ring in Lord of the Rings? Oh, that's Mordor, never mind. Moudon, located in the canton of Vaud in beautiful mountainous Switzerland. Of course, Switzerland. Where else would it have been invented? 1836 is when he was born. Peter attended school and graduated there. Later in life, Daniel Peter had formed a strong friendship with his neighbor, Henry Nestle. Does that ring a bell? Who had settled in Vevey, Switzerland, right around 1843. Nestle had developed a process to make baby food. He used what was then called a milky flour. It was at this point in his life that Daniel Peter asked the question, why not try to make a chocolate containing milk? Oh boy, I love where this is headed. The idea stayed with the young Daniel Peter to the point of becoming obsession. He realized that in order to stay in the chocolate market, already principally controlled by others, he must produce a new product that would become pleasing and desirable to the average consumer. It should be noted by all that since the early 20th century, the countries of Europe have been producing milk chocolate of varying qualities. This is from daysoftheyear.com, by the way. The development of the process by Daniel Peter was created in the community of Vevey with the canton of Vaud in Switzerland. Further pointed out the chocolate process, although not milk chocolate, was also created in Vevey, Switzerland by François-Louis Callier at the age of 23. Milk Chocolate Day was started, of course, by the Confectioners Association. Who else would want to promote a holiday like that? What about the health benefits? Again, we always talk about the more popular cousin to milk chocolate, which is dark chocolate. But here's a 12-year study that showed chocolate can cut risk of heart attacks and strokes. Yes, even the milk chocolate variety. They looked at 21,000 people in this 12-year study, and it showed that regularly indulging in chocolate can cut the risk of heart attack and strokes. And that goes for milk chocolate as well. One of the key secrets is flavonoids, a type of antioxidant found in chocolate, also found in red wines and teas, and those stimulate blood flow by mopping up damaged substances called free radicals, which can cause disease. Did you know that chocolate's one of the richest natural sources of magnesium? That's the mineral essential for brain health. Eating just a small amount, even 1 or 2 squares a day, can help boost concentration and alertness. And contrary to what you might think, chocolate is actually good for your teeth. Studies have found that chocolate can also lower blood pressure, reduce stress, keep us slim, make us beautiful, make us smarter. Do I need to go on? Hey, it even thickens hair. Where was that study when I needed it? Happy Milk Chocolate Day from Daybreak. Good morning to you.
Thank you so much for listening to today's Daybreak with Jeff Slakey podcast. Again, I'm so happy and honored you found us and chose to listen. Please subscribe, rate, review, and share this with your circle of influence. It's a collection of some of the interviews, news, and conversation during Daybreak with Jeff Slakey on I-501 News Radio KMAS, weekdays from 6 to 9. Thank you so much again, and talk with you next time.